Welcome to the February edition of What's in Bloom at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. Each month we put together a selection of plants that are in bloom in that particular month and print it out as a sheet that we hand out to visitors who come to the garden. So we're going to go over the plants that are on this month's What's in Bloom for February. And the first one is a Kangaroo Paw. So these are in the genus Anagoxanthos in the family Hemodoraceae. And they are wonderful Australian plants with fuzzy flowers and fuzzy stems and a distinctly different color on the inside. Here you can see it's greenish on the inside compared to the fuzzy reds on the outside. Really marvelous plants, and just beginning now, Anagoxanthos amber velvet. This plant here is called Coreopsis gigantea. Actually, it has a new name, Leptocyaene gigantea, but really well known by the original name Coreopsis gigantea. So it's in the daisy family, and it's a California native. And it's really remarkable for its big, fat, swollen stem and its shock of green foliage on the top. But that foliage is only present during the winter months. So it's a winter grower in keeping with California's winter rainfall climate. And it has these finely dissected ferny green leaves all winter long. But then in the summertime, those leaves wither and there's nothing but dead brown leaves on it like this for the summer months. And you might think it had expired, but it will come back and do it all over again the next year. So the large yellow daisy flowers are just beginning now, lots of buds, so there will be lots more to come. This plant is sort of a Dr. Seuss of the daisy world, and really a quite extraordinary plant. Coreopsis gigantea. The genus Eremophila in the family Scrophulariaceae is a large genus of shrubs from Australia, and this one here is Eremophila glabra, subspecies carnosa, and a cultivar called Winter Blaze because of its red flowers in the wintertime. It really doesn't get very large, but it really makes a lot of flowers over a long period in the wintertime. And in addition to all the flowers you see on it now, there's many buds yet to come. Eremophila Winter Blaze. This plant is an agave or a century plant, but it's really quite different from most. The leaves are thin and pliable, and there aren't teeth along the edges. Actually, there are minute teeth, but so small you don't see them. And it does somewhat resemble a dazilarion, so it has the name Agave dazilarioides. And it comes from southern Mexico, and it grows on cliffs. So on the cliffs where it grows, the flower stalk will come out and arch out over the abyss and then hang down. And so here you can see it doing that, coming up and arching over. This one sent up its flower stalk actually several months ago and seemed not to be accustomed to low temperatures in the wintertime. Obviously it's warm where it grows down in Mexico. And so it really took its time to begin to flower, but now it's really flowering quite nicely. And you can see the flowers begin at the part towards the plant and then move on down as the flowering progresses. So there's still a long way to go with all the buds hanging down below the open flowers. This is the first time we've ever flowered this at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, and we're very happy to have it in flower, even though we know it's going to die after it finishes flowering, but really quite a nice display. Agave dazilarioides. Correa is a genus of Australian shrubs in the citrus family, the Rutaceae, and this particular one is Correa reflexa. So you can see the flowers have a pinkish red lower portion and then flared yellow petal tips, more white on the inside, and this one is quite free flowering in the winter months, and it belongs to a species, Correa reflexa, that has a lot of different forms. Some of them shorter, some of them taller, some of them with various different tones of flower color. But this particular form here has a pronounced yellow and pink look to it, and more tall, upright growth than some of the other Correa reflexas. Correa reflexa from Australia. South Africa has lots of aloe species, and some of them are quite small and stemless, and other ones grow up on a trunk, like this one, Aloe africana. The name Aloe africana just means it comes from Africa, which is of course true of most aloes, so that's not really saying very much. But this is a unique plant because not only does it make a trunk and make a large rosette of leaves, but the flowers have this sort of a ski jump where the flower comes out and then swoops up at the mouth. And so it's a curved flower that's quite different from the other aloes that look similar in terms of their rosette. The inflorescences come in the wintertime usually, but sometimes there'll be a stray flower at other times of the year as well. So this one's just beginning now. This particular raceme here is open at the bottom, and this one here is the next in line and will come along in a few weeks. Really, the flower color on Africana is not consistent. They can be yellow or they can be more orange or red-orange. And this one here has a red-orange bud and then a yellow open flower. Aloe africana. The genus Arctostaphylos are commonly known as manzanitas. They're in the Erica family, the heath and heather family. And California has a great many species. This particular plant is Arctostaphylos Ruth Bancroft, and it's a hybrid that's a spontaneous plant that grew up here at the Ruth Bancroft garden, and we don't even know for sure what its parents are, but it makes lots and lots of little tiny white bell-like flowers in the wintertime. It's been in flower now for a couple of weeks and has lots and lots of flowers to go. Arctostaphylos Ruth Bancroft. Next up on our February What's in Bloom is Senna Artemisioides. So sennas are shrubs in the pea family. They have a wide distribution around the world, but this particular one is from Australia, Senna Artemisioides. So Artemisioides means like an artemisia or a wormwood, and artemisias are shrubs that are not related, but the texture of the foliage is reminiscent of an artemisia. Senna Artemisioides makes lots and lots of small, round, cup-like yellow flowers over a long period in the wintertime. And you can see it has lots of flowers on it now and lots more to come. And then it makes these seed pods that give it away as being in the pea family, very pea-like pods that start out green and then turn brown by the time they get ripe. Senna Artemisioides. One of the most taxonomically difficult groups in the genus Aloe is the maculate aloes or spotted aloes. There are other aloes that have spots too, but this particular group is mostly stemless rosettes with spotted leaves, and a great many of them come from South Africa. And there's a lot of disagreement about which ones we should count as a species and which one not, but this one's really quite distinctive, Aloe Brent Dryensis. The ending ensis means coming from, and it comes from a place called Brant Dry in South Africa. It is different from the other maculate aloes in that it has a lot of floral branches. This plant here is not yet in flower, just still at the bud stage, but you can see how many branches there are on the plant. Another unique thing about this species is how striped the leaves are, so much more so than most of the other maculate aloes. It always blooms in the wintertime and has red flowers when they open up, and these wonderfully colored leaves. It does have a trait that a lot of the maculates have, and that is twisted, dried leaf tips. That's the normal look of the plant. That's the way they are in habitat too. And even if you grow it in the shade to minimize that, there's a drawback to that, and that is that the colors of the leaf are not as intense as they are in the sun. So we like to grow it as it grows in nature, with its colorful leaves and tolerating those twisted leaf ends. Aloe Brent Dryensis. The genus Euphorbia is a huge group and very, very variable, ranging from little tiny weeds to trees. And there's one group of them that come from the Mediterranean area that have chartreuse flowers, and this is one of those, Euphorbia Rigida. The leaves are quite blue, and the chartreuse flowers emerge in the middle of winter, and you can see that there's a cluster of flowers at the end of each branch. The clump keeps on going, even though the branch does not, and so new branches come out every year and put on this floral display all over again. We love the chartreuse color combined with the blue leaves, but this plant's a little bit enthusiastic and does reseed in the garden. We have to pull it up where it comes up where we don't want it. Euphorbia Rigida. Allopherox and Aloe Arborescens are two species with very showy flowers that have a large distribution in South Africa. And there are places where the two grow together and hybridize. So there are natural hybrids. And usually the flower color is more in the red to red-orange range. But I had the idea that there are yellow forms of Allopherox and yellow forms of Arborescens, so I could cross those together and get a yellow version of the hybrid. And that's what I attempted here, but it really didn't come out quite the color I intended. It came out with pale orange at the bud stage and pale yellow at the open flower stage, and it reminded me of the color of a creamsicle, so I named it Aloe Creamsicle. And it really is putting on a wonderful display right now in February, Aloe Creamsicle. The island nation of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean has lots of aloe species, but because it's a little bit tropical, a lot of them won't grow so well outside here, but this is one that will. Alocapitada Variety quartziticola. Quartziticola meaning it grows on quartzite rocks, and Alocapitada meaning that the flowers are in heads rather than elongated racemes like most aloes have. So this one's not quite in flower yet, but you can see the buds. It's bright yellow when the flowers are open, and the leaves with their bluish color and their purple teeth are quite attractive as well. It can flush purple in a really bright sunny situation. And so one of the few aloes that we really can grow safely outdoors here, because it can take our mild freezes in the winter months. And it just starting to come into flower now. Probably we've got another month and a half to go when this will be in flower at the garden. A wonderful plant, Alocapitada Variety quartziticola. The genus Puya belongs to the bromeliad family, and they come from South America. Their distribution basically follows the Andes from Argentina and Chile in the south up to Colombia in the north. And they really are quite a variable group of plants with very different flowers. This particular one comes from Peru and Chinchero, Peru, and we don't have a name on it, but we're really quite fascinated by its flowers that have fuzzy cinnamon sepals and then green tubular flowers. It's been in bloom now for a couple of months and slowly proceeding its way up towards the tips. And it's really a compact plant. Some of the Puyas are much larger. In fact, the largest bromeliads of all are in the genus Puya. But this is a modest-sized one with very exceptional flowers. Puya species from Chinchero, Peru. Aloe Microstigma is a species from the south central and western part of South Africa. It's really not a winter rainfall plant so much as it is a plant at the borderline between summer and winter rain. There are quite a lot of forms of it, and we have at least a half a dozen here in the garden. This particular one here is the form from Graffrenet. It's one of the more inland populations of Aloe Microstigma with bluish leaves and beautiful pinkish red and yellow bicolored racemes of flowers in the winter months. And because Graffrenet is a relatively cold place in the wintertime, we think this form will hold up to our freezes in the wintertime better than most. Aloe Microstigma, the form from Graffrenet. One of the more spectacular aloes in flower is Allopherox from a large area in South Africa. And it has a branched inflorescence with lots of vertical spires of flowers in various colors. This one's on the red side, but we also have pink flowered ones and apricot flowered ones and even a white flowered one. It's just coming into flower now. The flowers haven't quite opened, but still showy at the bud stage, and it will be showy for quite some time as those flowers open in sequence, starting at the bottom and working their way up. Allopherox. The genus Hakia is a member of the Protea family from Australia. And this particular one here is Hakia piknonura. with very narrow, almost like large pine needles for leaves, and rounded clusters of flowers that come right off of the branches. Each cluster has many, many tiny flowers with long styles that protrude out from them and give us sort of a spike ball look. Hakia piknonura is a shrub, doesn't ever grow up to be a tree, and really makes lots of flowers that come like little fireworks along the branches here and there as the different parts of it come into bloom. This plant here that forms a mound with green tubular flowers is Deutericonia brevifolia. Now, these plants with lots and lots of little tiny heads that make a mound like this used to be in their own genus, Arborescens, but it's very close to the genus Deutericonia, and the plants were all moved into Deutericonia, so now we call it Deutericonia brevifolia. It comes from the Andes in Argentina and Bolivia, and has many, many small heads of leaves that mound up and form sort of like a living boulder. And then from out of the leaves come these little green tubular flowers, Arborescens or Deutericonia brevifolia. Echeveria is a genus in the stonecrop family, or the Crassulaceae. And most of them come from Mexico, although there are some that do go all the way down to South America. There are wonderful species and also lots of wonderful hybrids. This particular one here is a hybrid called Echeveria laulinza. And that name laulinza comes from its two parents. One is Echeveria laui, which has very fat, thick, pale leaves and comes from Oaxaca. And the other parent is Echeveria linziana, which is now considered a synonym of Echeveria colorata, that comes from farther to the west in Guadalajara area. And Echeveria laui is a prized plant because its leaves are so puffy and so white, but it's also very difficult to grow. So the idea was to cross it with the easier to grow Echeveria colorata or linziana in order to get a laui-like plant that doesn't die at the drop of a hat. So this is a very successful plant. It looks marvelous with these pale leaves and these arching stalks of flowers you can see. The flowers are pale orange on the outside and a deeper orange on the inside, and it flowers over a long period of time in the winter months. It's kind of strange that it does flower at this time of the year because neither of its parents flowers in the wintertime. But however, we're happy to take what we can get, and it really is a beautiful plant, Echeveria laulinza. Here we have another one of the wonderful aloes from South Africa, Aloe pleuridines. The name pleuridines means many teeth, but that's really not saying much because that's true of most aloes. This is a tall growing aloe that forms a clump. You can see the multiple heads down here with these well-branched flowers, usually in the red-orange or coral kinds of colors. And this plant we had growing out in the open in the garden, and it was completely killed to the ground in our big freeze in 1990. So now we grow it in this bed where there's protective cover over it in the wintertime. Just coming into flower now and really looking good, Aloe pleuridines. We looked at Senna Artemisioides, which is one of the Australian species in the genus Senna, and this is another one, a related one, called Senaphilodynia, and it has much more silvery leaves and a very similar yellow flower to Senna Artemisioides, and it's just starting flowering, lots and lots of buds, only a few open flowers as yet. This is a really attractive Australian small shrub, and makes lots and lots of flowers in the winter months, and we haven't had it for nearly as long as we've had Senna Artemisioides, which does reseed for us. This one we don't know whether it will or not, but it has similar pea pod type fruits, being in the pea family, and a wonderful silvery cast to it, Senaphilodynia. Here we have yet another one of the many wonderful South African aloes, Aloe francii. Aloe francii is one of the winter rainfall aloes from South Africa's west coast, and it's a close relative of Aloe Microstigma, which is from farther east. This plant is just beginning to come into flower. This one here is close to opening with the beautiful red-orange flowers showing there. And this one's a little farther behind with the flowers still at the bud stage. This is an aloe that is stemless, has some speckles on the leaves, but not as many as Aloe Microstigma. And as it gets older, oftentimes the inflorescence will branch, which Aloe Microstigma never does. It's not as common of a plant in cultivation, but a wonderful species that we have done quite well with here at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, Aloe francii. This brings us to the end of our February What's in Bloom list. But we want you to notice that there are always lots of plants that don't last a full month and aren't on our What's in Bloom list, and you have to come here to the garden to see them all. So we encourage you to come and visit anytime that you can. There's always different things at any time of the year at the Ruth Bancroft Garden, and we'd love to see you here when you can make it.